Hi, my name is Roger Smith. This is the Tru Blue Lounge, and we're going to get to know Lieutenant Colonel Oral Khan. Oral, how you doing?
Very well, Roger. Good to be here. We we go by the British tradition, so we say lieutenant instead of lieutenant. But that's me. Yes, good to be here.
Lieutenant. Okay, nice, nice. I learned that. I learned that. Okay,
Mhm.
so Oral, I'm sure, or I hope you've seen some of our videos, and the whole idea is to have some fun, have a laugh, and get to know who you are. So let's go. So it's going to be a bumpy
Yeah,
ride, but hopefully you'll be okay. All right.
it should
So,
be.
what are
Yeah.
you sipping on over there? What is your drink of choice, Aura?
No, I'm just having some tea, Roger. Some tea. Good old
Sorrel
leaf of
seeds,
life. Um,
leaf of life. Okay.
leaf of life. Yeah. hmm Yeah.
You have
Good for
to.
the sinuses.
Okay, you have to be careful. You drink all them nice teas. You'll live to all 120 years old. And you may not have budgeted for that kind of.
But
But,
just to keep my sinuses clear. hmm
cool, cool. All right. So, what is your favorite meal, Aura?
Roger, it's hard to tie down a favorite meal because my wife keeps surprising me all the time. Um, I enjoy whatever she prepares, so it's hard to select one favorite meal. I can't really give you one favorite meal. I enjoy everything she prepares. She takes care of that side of things. Yep. When we go out to eat, I tend to do Chinese stuff or Indian stuff, but I wouldn't say those are my favorite. Home cooked meal, my favorite.
You're gonna get some prizes for that answer. Trust me, you're gonna get some prizes. That's a good answer. Good answer. Um, so let me understand your early life, Oral, from a 4-year-old. What was Oral like, and what I'd like you to do is just give us from your Unity School days right up until where you are today. Just give us a nice little
Mhm.
a fly on the wall following you. And what I want to ask you first was a 5-year-old Oral Khan having shine shoes and a sharp suit.
I can hardly remember 5 years old. I remember going to the basic school run by our church, and my mother was the teacher in that basic school. So I'm sure I would have had to be one of the good behaving boys. Right. But at Unity, um, I remember participating in the festival. I remember one song we entered, Do You Need a Cabin Boy, Ship in the Harbor? That's one thing I remember from primary school, being involved in the festival. Um, Strange enough, there's one other thing I remember from primary school that in I think it was in grade three, we teacher gave us a composition to write about my best friend,
Mhm.
and I wrote a nice little composition about my best friend, only to find out afterwards that my best friend wrote about somebody else. So from that day, I don't believe in best friend anymore. I remember that, but yep. But in primary school, I went to primary school. My brother was a year ahead of me in school, so but we did common entrance at the same time. He was in grade six, I was in grade five, and we passed at the same time to go to Mannings. And so we started Mannings together in 1973, and we were in the same form, same class from first form to upper six, and
Wow.
so that was quite an experience. Um, that that year at Manning School was something else because there were also two sisters in the same class,
Mhm.
and there were a pair of twins in another first form. So in that first form year group, we had three sets of siblings, and only one set was twins, were twins. Um, but I enjoyed my Manning's years. I was kind of in the shadow of my elder brother for a couple of years in the early years because he was obviously elder and better looking and all that. and he
Now,
took to
now,
soccer.
now, 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 now.
So I kind of stayed in the background, but I caught up with him in terms of stature by the time we got to fourth form. And I think I started to come into my own from third form upwards. And I joined the cadets from first form. My brother did as well. Most boys that time would join the cadets. But my brother focused more on sports, on football, and I focused on the cadets. And I excelled in cadets. I did well. I became the sergeant major. And by the time I got to fifth form, I was a sergeant. Didn't really wear the three stripes of a sergeant. By the time I could have an occasion to wear the uniform, I was promoted in rank again to warrant officer. So I wore the sergeant major rank. And I became head boy before I left, deputy head and then head boy. I was very active, um, fully involved in all the activities. I really enjoyed my years at Mannings. Um, After Mannings, well, when I was in upper six, that last Christmas break, I did my selection board for the Army. I was very impressed by the Army, not only because of my exposure through the cadets, but during the June 79 floods, the JDF was deployed to Westmoreland, and the US CBs were there as well. And they did such a tremendous work in restoring the parish, which was devastated by those flood rains in June 1979. And I was so impressed by what I saw of the JDF and the impact they had, and it sealed in my mind that I wanted to work with this organization. And my background in the cadets kind of helped pave the way. And so I applied while I was still in sixth form, and I got called to a selection board, attended during that Christmas break, and was successful. And so I I said to the final thing you do is an interview with the chief of staff, and at the end of the interview, I said, well, I asked permission and told me I was selected for training for a short service commission. I said, well, sir, may I be permitted to go back to school and finish my A levels? And yeah, he said, yes, sure. Just notify us when your exams are over. I said, yes, sir. And I have one more request, sir. I'm going all the way to Westmoreland. Is there a flight going to Westmoreland that maybe I could join to go home? Because I had to, I would have to go and find a minibus. And you can see that question really shocked the chief of staff. He looked across the room and looked at the other officers who were there. And surprisingly enough, he said, well, if there's a flight going down, sure, you can get a ride. And as the good Lord would have it, there was in fact a flight going to Montego Bay. And I was able to board a JDF fixed wing flight. So you can imagine me joining a flight from a park camp to Montego Bay, caught the minibus from Montego Bay back to Westmoreland, and I was on top of the world. I had passed my selection for the Army, and I was flown home by the JDF. I was on top of the world. So as soon as my exams were over, I sent a telegram to the headquarters that I'm now available for duty.
Mhm.
And that was in July, and I got a response to report on the 5th of August. So I really never got a summer break that year. I straight from school and joined the Army 5th of August 1980, and I served until um, 2012. Left on my birthday in 2012, and attaining the age of 50 years,
Wow.
the rank of lieutenant colonel. There's a lot that happened in between, but we can talk about that.
No, no, no. That's good. That's good. That's good. Hey, so when you are a leader of men and it's dating time, when you call to a young lady across the road, how does she dare say she's not coming?
Well, my story that didn't allow me to have to do that because I spotted my wife to be while we were still in high school. So I didn't have to do that much fishing. But army officers back in the day, I'm not sure what it is now, but back in the day, we didn't have much trouble, you know, getting positive responses from ladies. I don't know what it is like now, but I didn't have to do that much fishing because I had spotted my needle in the hay and had, you know,
Yeah.
made my intentions fairly clear. Okay,
And she
yeah,
understood the instructions.
I didn't say instructions, my intentions.
Intentions, intentions. Okay,
Well,
okay. Good one,
at,
good one.
at at the time, well, you never know exactly where it would lead, but I declared my love for her,
Mhm.
and I don't know if she thought I was asking her to marry her at that stage, but she told me she didn't quite know what to say, but I knew what was in her heart. So yeah,
Nice, nice.
so
Hey,
I indicated, mm, yeah,
let me go somewhere different. So, Oral, did you ever have a job outside the army?
yes, yes. I retired from the army at age 50, and so yeah, I had to do some more work. I applied to the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation and was successful. So I worked there for a number of years as the chief technical director. But while I was serving, I was seconded on two occasions to the Ministry of National Security in the first instance. Um, and then that changed to a secondment to the Cabinet Office, where I performed a couple functions. First, they established a national security coordinating unit within the Ministry of National Security, and I was asked to coordinate that. It was an experiment, basically, by the minister, because he felt within the ministry he didn't have anybody with competence in handling the affairs of the military, the police, and the correctional services, which fell under his portfolio. So they set up a unit staffed by persons from those entities, and as a military person, I was asked to lead that. I, then at the cabinet office, we established a, what was it called? No, it was an offshoot of the same coordinating unit, became the National Security Strategy Implementation Unit. As one of the things that the coordinating unit did, we developed the first national security strategy for Jamaica, um, with support from external partners. And so there was a unit that was established to oversee the implementation of that, and I coordinated that unit for a year before going back to the JDF. So I did several stints outside of uniform in the civil service before. But on departure from the JDF, I worked as a civil servant as chief technical director.
What was that
Yeah.
transition like for you, Oral? Civilian
The
to, uniform
yeah,
to civilian.
the, the the biggest difference was that you in the military you are responsible for training the personnel who are under your command. You you know what it is you're working with. You know what you're getting. You're They're loyal to the organization, and of course there is a command structure. You actually have command if you're in a command appointment, but even if you're in a staff appointment, those persons are still under command of somebody, and so you give an instruction, it will be carried out or there will be consequences. In the civil service, and especially with me coming in from outside, you really don't know what you're getting.
Mhm.
um, and also they look at you and they're not sure what they're getting either. So it takes a while to adjust. um, you don't have the same sort of work ethic. I believe I was fortunate the time when I that I spent at National Security. Oh, I didn't mention one of the appointments at National Security, and I may backtrack. So I spent the first year in the National Security Coordinating Unit, went back to camp, served for a year as commanding officer, and the ministry asked if I could return because they were losing their senior director. And I went and served as a senior director, still on secondment, senior director in the Ministry of National Security, and that was for strategic planning, policy, evaluation, and research. So I got a good degree of experience of the civil service while on secondment, and that prepared me for later on when I left the force. But the issue I'm speaking about, not knowing exactly what you're getting to work with, um, the skills, competencies, you're not sure, loyalty, you're not sure. So it's a little bit more strain on your leadership skills. But as I said, as I was about to say, I think I was fairly fortunate. Um, I think, yeah, I think I was fortunate. It was not too difficult for me. Part of the reason, um, a number of my years in the military were spent in units which were not as regimented, and I had to do a lot of interface with civil society. So I worked in intelligence for a number of years, and that allowed me a lot of interaction outside of strict regimentation. A lot of staff work was involved in that. So it was not always shouting commands and doing field exercises. So the transition was not that difficult for me.
Mhm. Having command of and respect from so much people that you led, was it hard to speak to someone that had an opinion and is looking at you in a different light? Because as you said, you were used to people doing what they were told, and now you're in civilian world wherein someone
Yeah,
may not be as enthusiastic to
yeah,
to obey as you're used to.
yeah,
How did that impress upon you?
yeah. Well, I share one incident. Um, I was chairing a meeting once, and a couple persons turned up late for the meeting, and just walked in, and I told them I couldn't join the meeting at that stage. They were late, and I excused them, basically dismissed them because they were showing up late for the meeting without asking permission to be late or giving any warning, and I didn't permit them to join the meeting, and that led to a complaint to the permanent secretary that yeah, I was being not sure, but the permanent secretary wasn't too happy with my action. That felt
So
that was not really proper.
who irons your shirts now? And do knowing that, and remember, I've known you since 77. So I know
Yeah,
how strict you are. I got kicked
yeah,
out of cadets. I used to have anxiety when inspection time was coming because I couldn't press them the clothes the way you guys pressed them, and my boots were
yeah,
never going to look as shine. So,
yeah,
how did it manifest itself?
yeah. Well, all right. For some special occasions, you would get your uniform laundered. You're not taking any risk with that. So properly laundered by the dry cleaners, but that would be for special periods. Um, but I take care because I don't think anybody else would do as good a job on the ironing. So in my house, we balance balance
I
the
knew,
chores. I
I knew,
mentioned
yeah, I knew it's coming.
I,
No, I said
I
I
mentioned
knew
that.
it was coming. I knew it was coming. There was going to be a situation where no one's going to press your clothes better than you. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. My wife did attempt it in the early days, but I relieved her of that. It was necessary, and but we balance the chores. So she manages the kitchen, and I'll take care of the ironing. So no shame to say, I iron her uniforms, as she used to be nursing, and I would assist with the ironing, and she would take care of the meals, and
Okay.
we worked that out. I enjoy ironing. That is one household chore because of my cadet days that I enjoy doing. So with all pleasure.
Do you have OCD, would you say?
No, no, no. I,
If
I,
you went to a desk and there was a pile of papers, would you have a propensity to want to make these
no,
papers all okay? All
no,
right.
no, no, no.
In your
I'm not.
wardrobe, go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead. The desk, my desk is a messy desk,
Okay.
so I don't have that. My wardrobe, yeah. Once it gets inside there, it will be organized.
And
But
when you say organized, we're talking about colors going from dark to light and all facing in the right direction.
facing in the right direction. Yep. Colors maybe not because I don't have a wide range of colors. So I'm a pretty plain guy. So yeah. So yeah, just neat enough. I'm not obsessive about it. No.
Yeah, no, no, just checking because we remember you different. We remembering you as a powerful cadet leader that
Yeah.
kicked me and Michael right out of cadets. So
Yeah.
just making sure
That
you understand where we
that
come from.
that won't work so well in the home environment, and especially when you had kids. So one has to know how to modify it. So no, I'm I'm not that type. No.
So what's it like being the son of Oral Khan, trying to live up to that level of excellence, knowing that you were sharpened and polished in the
Yeah.
70s when it was really hard, and these kids have it relatively easy.
Yeah. Well, you know, I tried to train them early so that as they got older, it would be easier on me. I wouldn't have to be trying to correct them later on. Um, and so I have to say, I didn't have much difficulty with them because I knew what I stood for. And I got them going to church, Sunday school, and I would teach them a couple Bible verses that would set them straight. Like foolishness is in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction will drive it far from him. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long. So they knew those verses very
Right,
early.
right, right. We grew up with them.
Um, so yeah, and so they knew that I meant what I said, and my wife supported me. So we really, my boys never gave me much trouble. Um, my eldest son is in the army. He went to the U.S. Military Academy, and
Mhm.
he came home and he joined the JDF. So he's now a major in the JDF.
Oh, nice.
My younger son, he joined the reserves and spent about 2 years, got his commission, and then he left. Um, so I was quite pleased that they followed those my leading,
I can
and
imagine.
happy for them. No regret.
Nice, nice. Have you got any
So the
hobbies?
key the key, Roger, is to train them early while they're very young. Let them know what to stand for.
Mhm,
Correct them early. Um, when they mess up as little boys, be
mhm.
happy for that because they get an opportunity to teach them the right thing. You don't want them messing up when they get older.
True, true, true. Have you any hobbies, Oral? And what are they? And do you get time to indulge?
You know, I think my early hobby became my occupation because I really enjoyed what I was doing in cadets. I enjoyed camping. Some of my most memorable days at Mannings were times spent in the cadet, spent on our expeditions. Um, and so that sort of hobby became my occupation. Although once you got into the army and started to move up in the ranks, you never did those sort of things as often anymore. You got involved in staff work and you know that sort of
Mhm.
thing. But now I like working in my garden. My wife loves flowers, and I assist in the garden and planting things. Now that I'm retired, yep. So plant a lot of things in the yard, and it's a pleasure to go out and can pick something and eat it. So that's where my hobby is now, and apart from that, I'm heavily involved in my church, and so church work takes up some of my time. I teach a Sunday school class and help to mentor the
I'm
youth
still
and so
I'm
on.
still gonna ask you the question: are you religious, and how does it help in your day to day life? And the reason I'm
Yeah,
asking, you could be a Sunday school teacher and still not be religious. You could just be doing it because you're bored.
yeah,
So, tell me about it.
yeah, yeah. I prefer not to use the term religious, but yes, I am religious because church is part of my routine. I was brought up that way, so we would go to church every Sunday. Um, and I still maintain that tradition. I brought my sons up in that tradition as well. And so I take my spirituality and my relationship with my Heavenly Father very seriously. I'm actually now engaged in theological studies, Roger, since last year. And so yeah, I take it seriously. It makes the world of difference for me because
Mm.
I try to shape and lead my life based on the principles that I learned from the Word of God and the teachings of Jesus Christ. So I hope I'm walking consistently to my faith and letting my light shine. I try to do that deliberately.
Your light was shining from the early days, So we always knew you were special. So, um,
Well, I
so
made
that
my
light.
decision early.
Mhm,
I made my decision early. From I was in primary, before I left primary school, I was baptized and so on. So I made an early choice. Yeah.
mhm. So, are your kids Christians?
Yes, they were both baptized before they left home.
Mhm,
My son in Japan, I don't think he finds much time to go to church because he works a lot on Sundays. And Daniel is a Christian. He's a member of the same church that I worship at. So yes, they're Christians, both Christians.
Okay, cool. Are you in Westmoreland?
No, no, I live in Kingston. I I left Westmoreland on the 5th of August, and I've only been back for holidays, short stints, overnight visits. I go back down there fairly regularly. My parents are deceased now, but
Mhm,
Mannings brings me back to Westmoreland quite often. The Bible college that I'm doing classes with, although virtual, is based in Westmoreland,
mhm.
and so I'm connected to the parish.
Do you have any vices, Oral?
I I dealt with them early, Roger. So I try to walk on the straight and narrow. Maybe devices. Did you say devices?
No, vices. Like you drink a
I
rum
know,
every
I
now
know,
and
I know,
again.
I know. I'm just putting a spin on it because I think I spend too much time now on my device from time to time. So I guess that would be the biggest challenge now. But I try to walk on the straight and narrow and correct myself speedily when I step out of line.
So if you had the flu or a sinus infection, would you have a quick wash your face with some white rum and drink a little with a little boom?
I never tested that remedy. I mentioned my leaf alive and verbine that works very well,
Okay.
but I I will drink a glass of wine when having a meal sometimes, special occasion. But I'm not a social drinker. But a glass of wine is fine.
Okay. That's nice.
It doesn't go to the extent that I'll call it a vice.
Right, right. But it's nice to know that Oral has a glass of wine. Have you ever drank a beer?
Yep, and I didn't like the taste of it. So I'll tell you this: there's a tradition in the army when young officers return off course. Part of working you into the regiment is to
Mhm,
subject you to a thing we call the doping, and we don't talk about it much outside the army circles. But at the dopey, well, the dopey is prepared weeks in advance, and it's a concoction of all the liquor they have in the bar. Legend has it that they normally bury it on the ground for maybe 2 weeks or so before the appointed time. and it is administered to you. They first remove your badge of rank, so you're not an officer and a gentleman for the duration of the dopey. And yep, you are compelled to drink it. By the time you finish drinking that, you are drunk. So yeah, I had to go through my dopey. I tried. Well, I don't think I ever drank a beer, a whole beer outside of that dopey, but there's the one that you what do I call it? It's a beer and soda. There's a name for that, but I never liked the taste of it. I would never become a beer drinker, and that's not just because of religion. Because I tell you, I drink a glass of wine, and I've had other alcohol. Like I have had Bailey's Irish Cream. I like the taste of that, but I don't drink. Um, but beer, no, it tastes too bad. Um, Tried stout that it
Sorry.
tastes too bad as well. So I don't know how people get hooked on those things. Rum tastes horrible. Nice flavor in ice cream, but I've never
Sorry,
never
sorry.
cultivated an appetite for
I'm
those things.
laughing so much because I drink so much of this stuff. You know, if it wasn't
Well, I'm sure you don't drink it for the taste.
no, but if it wasn't for Ray J and his nephew, I don't know how I would get over COVID. You know, that COVID
Oh,
being in the house sort of thing. You know.
well, that's just me. That's just me. I never acquired a taste, but
Mhm,
I was introduced to it. So I told you I drank. I had to drink my dopey, and I was drunk before finishing that. And
mhm,
yeah, real drunk. I'm talking.
mhm. Lucky thing
But
there weren't any cameras around then, eh?
no,
Mhm. Wow, wow.
no. And it's done in a fairly private setting, most of it. So they take you to the dungeon, and although it spills out outside of the dungeon was a place. Well, we're not going to talk about the dungeon here.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's
yeah,
out all the
yeah.
secret.
Mhm.
So yeah, but yeah, I know what it is to be drunk because I've been drunk these months.
Any favorite books? So I'd like to know your favorite book. I'd like to know what music you listen to and what artists.
Yeah. Um, I like to read self-help books, relational books, books that help with relationships. Because in my role in the church, I do counsel with my young people quite a bit. One book that I found quite interesting, one of the personal development books, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, I think is what it's called, by Stephen Covey.
Yep, read that
I
book.
found that book quite useful, and I recommend it. In terms of relationships, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. I found
Venus.
that one
Mhm.
quite useful for relationships. Um, Chase a Lion. Don't remember who is the author of that book, but those are some of the recent ones that I enjoyed reading. And of course, the good book is highly recommended as well.
Right.
Try to get a little of that.
I like Proverbs, but the books in Proverbs are pretty nice.
Oh, well, yeah, wisdom book. Yeah, in
Yeah.
terms of the Bible, not sure which is my favorite. I don't I don't have one favorite book in the Bible, but Proverbs very full of good advice, words of wisdom for
Mhm,
any young man. Every young man should read that book, the book of Proverbs,
mhm,
once every 2 years or so.
mhm. Okay, that was good advice. I'm going to make an effort to. My birthday's in August, and I'm going to see if I can read Proverbs, and I'll come back on here and let you know that I've read it again. So, Oral, tell me about a low point in your life and how you overcame it.
Yep. A low point for me occurred fairly early in my military training. I must say, part of my inspiration for joining the JDF came from a former head boy we had at Mannings, Frank Gale. He became a JDF helicopter pilot, and that was part of my inspiration, and I wanted to follow in his stead. It seemed like the most exciting part of the military service. So I had done the aptitude tests, when I did my selection board and was successful. So they figured I had the aptitude for flying. But I attempted to do flying training before even learning to ride a bike. Um, I wasn't very skilled in that era. I went on a flying course alongside another Jamaican who himself had attained his private pilot's license before attempting military flying. And so he was more advanced than I was. And I'm learning in military flying, you have to progress at a certain pace. And I was not keeping pace with him, and the course had to move along. On top of that, I had been brought out of a trench in infantry training to go and join this flying course because I'd initially gone to do the basic training, which was infantry training. So it was a big transition for me. And came to the point that my progress was not going satisfactorily, and they felt I could not continue training, and that was a failure, and that was the first time I was really experiencing failure, and it dealt a severe blow to my ego. I think I remember going to the commanding officer to hear the news that my progress wasn't going fast enough, and I said to him, sir, my parents are going to be disappointed. I want you to just write a letter to them and just explain, let them know what happened, because I don't want to have to tell them. I don't remember my exact words to it, but he, I, I was searching through my parents' things, and I found a letter that was written to him, and it did say some very nice things about me, and helped to cushion that. So I was not able to complete my pilot's training, my flying training. I started it,
Hmm.
but wasn't able to complete it. And so I came back to Jamaica, and that was a bit of an embarrassment to me. But I I guess a lot of people from JDF didn't know that I had gone on flying training. I mean, my fellow officers, I think, because a stigma could follow me from that. But thankfully, I didn't really face that sort of stigma, and I was able to bounce back very quickly. And I think it was all, when you're a believer, you see all these things working together for good. And I, you know, rose in the other areas of the army. So I became an infantry officer, and I was able to excel.
Hmm.
And so I overcame that. And I hardly ever remember, unless I'm asked about, low points. And whenever I'm asked about a low point, that is what I recall, because that was my first encounter with failure. Before that, I was doing quite well in, high school, early selection to the army, all that was going good. But I overcame it. I accepted it as part of God's plan for my life. And that is part of what faith does for you. Because I realized I was struggling and I prayed about it and it didn't work. So you accept that as part of God's will for your life. And I have no regrets. I mean, coming back to camp shortly after that, one of our colleagues from Mannings School, who was also a pilot, was a fixed wing pilot, he lost his life in an aircraft accident. And
Wow.
when that happened, that just came to me, and that could have been me.
Hmm.
And was very saddened that my colleague, God bless his soul, um, was killed in that aircraft accident. But these things happen, so I just accepted it as God's will, and my career was not really harmed by it.
Hmm. What
But
is,
it was a low point.
so? What is a high point in your life? Can you name a high point in your life, and let me know what you're very passionate about? Double question.
Yeah, a high point. I believe that would be when I became a father. Um,
Hmm.
that would have been a high point, welcoming my first offspring into the world. Um, Seeing a newborn, which is your seed coming to life, it's quite a miracle. So that was a high point for me. Career wise, I've had a number of high points in my career.
Hmm.
Um, Being able to be part of the delegation that represented Jamaica at the climate change conference in Paris, where the Paris Agreement was signed.
Hmm.
I That was a high point. I was a senior person from my ministry leading that mission to Paris. I've represented Jamaica, well, the government at several conferences, and you feel that you are doing something meaningful. Those are high points. In national security and JDF missions, a number of operations that we went on success. I remember one where I think we saved a great fire in downtown Kingston after one election when a particular party had hoped to win and they lost, and they were about to set fire to Coronation Market and just burn down the place. And I was in charge of the military detachment in covering the constituencies of East, West, and Central Kingston. And we caught wind of what was going on, and we had to go there and prevent that. It was a high risk situation,
Hmm.
but we got through that. Um, a lot we could talk about. I don't know if those are high points, but there are moments when you feel that you did something significant. And
Hmm.
yeah, passionate. I I mentioned I'm a believer, and that my life, I try to build my life around Christian principles, and I'm trying to become more passionate about that, about being a witness for the Lord. I'm passionate about Jamaica. I I love my country. I love my school. I love my church. I love my family. Um,
Hmm.
not necessarily in that order, of course, but these are things I'm passionate about. I can get riled up about these things easily.
Hmm. What have you learned about yourself as you mature?
Yep. Um, what have I learned about myself? You know, you have to learn to relax and smile a little bit more. Everything doesn't have to be so serious. I came up, as you mentioned, my cadet days, and I didn't quite realize it until people started to tell me that I must smile more. Why I don't smile a little more? I never quite appreciate. So these days I'm laughing a whole lot more. I'm
Nice.
a lot more relaxed and taking life a little easier, not being stressed. And I find that is a nice way to live.
Right. So, Oro, when we expire, what do you think happens to us?
Well, my views are based on the limited knowledge, but what is revealed from God's word.
Mhm.
I I expect. Well, we know what happens to the body because the body goes back to the dust, and we believe the spirit returns to the Lord, the Maker. And I know my belief is that we await the resurrection where we are unified with a new body. And I believe that after death, there is life,
Mhm.
and that we will either enjoy eternal rest or eternal damnation based on our decisions in the current life. So I believe we have to meet our Maker, and we should prepare for that eventuality. So we should live expecting that there is an account to give after death. If it so happens that you don't wake up, then you don't lose anything, you don't lose much. But if you do wake up after death and realize that you have to give an account and you didn't prepare for that, then you're in a world of hurt. So I hope you glean something from that response.
I did, sir. I have a follow up question. Um,
Yeah,
does this living good apply to animals as well, or just humans?
good question. There. is the sense that the earth will be renewed, and
Mhm.
the animals that expire now, I don't see those animals coming back. But there is the belief that there will be a new earth, and the new earth will also have animals. So I don't believe that the life of the animals that expire will be restored. They don't have an eternal soul. So those die and they become dust. They don't have a soul. But on the new earth, I believe we will have animals. The lion and the lamb can live in peace again. So I
Right.
look forward to that.
So for me,
But I don't expect to see my pet dog again.
okay, no, and that's important. That's important that you said that because you're holding the human higher than other animals, and that's understandable because of the good book. So for me, that lives a good life, and when I say a good life, I don't eat pets. I try to be kind, empathetic, and a good human being. Where do I stand in this story where I have to stand up and account for my life? Do I have to line up as well and be and be accounted for?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, Roger. Um, we are rewarded for good works in the
Mhm,
next life. However, in order to gain that reward, you have to enter into the kingdom. So the good works are not going to get us into the kingdom. So the good works alone are not sufficient. Um, we enter in through the door, and Christ is the door. Belief in Jesus Christ is what will save us, accepting Christ as Lord, as Savior,
mhm,
confessing our sins. So that act is important. Good
mhm,
works can come before, good works most definitely must come after that act of regeneration, a new life. If a man is in Christ, if a man says he knows Christ, then you expect the new life. And then the good works will benefit him because there will be rewards for good works.
mhm.
I would like your good works to go unrewarded, Roger. So I encourage you to take that other step of faith, right? If you haven't done it yet. So take that other step so you can also gain rewards for the good works that you do. But keep
Yeah.
on doing good. Keep on doing good.
Well, Oral, as you're on the other side, I'll just say, hey, I know Oral, we went to school together. Give me a blind, man. Oh boy, oh
Uh,
boy.
one way through the door, and that is Christ Jesus. I wish I could bring you by holding your hand, but I can only point you to the door and say, "Hey, Roger, come through the door. Test it out. It don't hurt. You don't give up. You don't give up that much, and anything you give up, you're gonna gain better and more. So it's a little. Christ is not going to be a debtor to any of us where he owes us, where we give up more than we gain. So we actually gain more than we give up.
Do you want to be cremated or buried?
I've had that discussion with my wife. Um, Cremated is what I prefer. I don't think that on an island we should be going around building all these tombs, concrete tombs. I believe we should be cremated, save the land space for planting crops and you know building useful things. I don't think we should be giving up any more of our limited land space to sepulchres and tombs. We have enough of those already. Land that won't be used for anything else. So I'll go for cremation.
When you think of the future, are you hopeful?
I have to be. I have to be. Um, there are lots of things going wrong in this country, but I am hopeful. I think we're we're not a failed state. I commented on that just yesterday. So I'm hopeful that things can get better. All the prophecies don't have to be fulfilled on us. They can be fulfilled on some other people somewhere
Mhm,
else.
mhm,
We can create a balm in Gilead. There's that expression.
mhm,
Um, we can make our local area a safe place to be. We can start with our homes, creating the environment in our own homes, and then spread it out to the neighborhood, be an influence in our neighborhood, an influence for good. So I'm hopeful. I'm always hopeful.
Um, so, being in the military and being a patriot, how have you made sure you stayed right down the middle of the aisle? Meaning, you don't necessarily wear a green shirt or an orange shirt. You wear a Jamaican shirt. How do you make sure that is what you're about?
Yeah. And in the military, we're warned against that. Um, I I enjoy a good discussion on politics without being partisan, because I believe it is important that we engage the political process, and we can do that without being partisan. But it's difficult in Jamaica. Now that I'm out of the army, I can talk a little bit more freely. So I do have views, but I do not align with a party position. If a party position aligns with mine, then that's a different matter.
No,
But
that's
I'm
powerful.
not about partisanship. I've
Mhm,
served in the civil administration, in the civil service under both political administrations, and as a senior officer in the JDF under different political directorates too. And we have to be loyal. We're not loyal to the individual. We're loyal to the government. We're loyal to the constitution.
mhm,
And I try to live by principles.
mhm,
So you can fault me on the principles, but partisanship is not worth it. So yeah, if you're guided by principles, if you're loyal to the principles, then you're in good stead.
Um, help me out here. So, Jamaica is a superpower. Just play this game with me. Jamaica is a superpower. Um, you are the Colin Powell of Jamaica at this time. There's a terrorist that needs to be taken out. You have, not you personally, but the battalion that you are looking after has a clear shot on this guy. There'll be 40 casualties, women and children that may perish. With your superior emotional intelligence, tell me what's going in your mind when the president stroke prime minister says, take that shot. What goes on in your mind as a Christian?
Yeah. the the political directorate should not really give that command when to take the shot. He gives the clearance that he wants the terrorists taken out. Must be
Mhm,
left to the commander on the ground, the right time to order the trigger to be pulled. And we must at all times balance the situation and bear in mind the safety of the civilians. If you can delay the execution of the order
mhm,
to guarantee the safety of the innocents, then you must do that.
mhm,
Denying any avenue of escape to the terrorists. You can be patient, and it is better to be patient and wait him out, just blocking any escape. Now, if he becomes a threat to an immediate threat to the persons around him,
mhm,
then you cannot really delay. And in that scenario, then you may have to pull the trigger and run the risk of, you know, injuring or killing innocent persons. But that is not you don't rush to that decision.
mhm,
You choose the time and the place for executing so as to minimize casualties of innocent people. As long as you ensure that there is no avenue of escape and you can keep that terrorist under observation, you wait for the best time to get him. As I said, if he becomes an immediate danger to persons that you have sworn to protect, then you have to move to take him out. But it wouldn't be worth it to take him out and take out the person who you are sworn to protect as well. Then you defeat your purpose.
So it's nice to know
That's the best way I can answer you.
it's nice to know they didn't take your heart away. It's still you're still one of us. It's good to know. It's good to know. Oh gosh. So tell me something. How do you manage your mental health knowing that, having a Cuban or Jamaican cigar is out of the question, having a Ray J nephew is out of the question. And I'm going to say this, when you see these young people, crushing the high grade in their hand middle, you may say, boy, why don't I get a job and this, that, and the other? But, life is tough, and every single human village in every country, whether they're in Papua New Guinea eating those little berries that make them high, or they're in the Amazon, they've got some juice that they're drinking. But everybody is staying high because life is hard. You not having a vice, how do you make sure your mental health is where it needs to be? And when you want to cry, where do you go?
All right. Well, a couple of things. Couple of things. We distress ourselves quite a bit sometimes because of some expectations, unrealistic expectations that we have. And, because they're unrealistic, we might not be able to attain them. So we set ourselves up for the stresses that we face sometimes. At other times, our unwillingness to forgive those who have wronged us cause us to carry feelings a lot. Our unwillingness to say we are sorry when we know we definitely hurt somebody and that person may be out to get us because we have not admitted our fault and so on. These are some of the things that build up stress. And I try to deal with those things by, yes, trying to set my expectations a bit, temper them down and be realistic. I try to be quick to forgive when persons have wronged me, so I don't carry it. I can't carry that because it's a heavy burden. And that's all of what I'm saying is what I've learned from the good book over the years, and I've found that they work. Um, Being quick to say I'm sorry, making peace with my adversary quickly. I've encountered a couple of persons who are very difficult to make peace with, I must admit. Um, but as far as I can, I try to, be at peace, make peace, whether it is by forgiving them or saying, I'm sorry. And then I look at some people and I say, well, don't they have a heavenly father like me? So again, my faith comes to my rescue because I have a sense of a caring heavenly father that I can take my stresses to, and I've had a few that I've had to take to him when I can't take to anybody else, not even my wife, and talk to him about some things and tell him he can't feel me now.
Mhm.
Um, so those are some of the approaches, and I'm happy I have an understanding wife, and so we talk quite a bit. So I those are the approaches to taking care of my mental health. A good relationship with my God. I regard him as a loving heavenly Father, and with respect to my fellow men, I try not to carry any hurt feelings for too long. If somebody has hurt me, I try to forgive them quickly.
Mhm.
And where I know that I've hurt somebody, or if they make me know, I tell them sorry quickly, try and resolve it quickly. I find those things work, and I don't stress myself to attain things that are not necessary. I live a simple life, Roger.
What do you go back and say to an 18-year-old oral? Wide-eyed, the world's in front of him. You have the ability to tap on the shoulder of your 18-year-old self and whisper something. What do you say?
Ah, I'll say stay focused, my boy. Keep your eyes on the target. Um, be true to your faith, live out your faith. It will be worth it all in the end. I'd be encouraging a younger oral to stay on the straight and narrow path. And yeah, and live the life you love and love the life you live. I like that one.
Mhm.
So those would be the words, and I do say words to that effect to youngsters too, who I have the chance to mentor. Mm,
I think it's so important that people in your situation who have had an accomplished life and are very disciplined, that you become mentors because, you know, a lot of men nowadays don't, I don't know, something happened where there's not a lot of fathers around. You know what I mean? There's a lot of baby fathers, but there's not a lot of fathers. And I don't know if it's a chicken or egg situation. I don't know if the men failed the women or the women chose badly. It's a double-edged sword, but I just, it's a worry. And I think a lot of us can do more, especially even when we talk about our school. I think, we should
yeah,
all, the teachers should find people that went to the school that we can mentor and make sure we can help keep on the straight and narrow.
yeah. You know, Roger, it goes back to, and I tell you, I base a lot on my understanding of the good book, and it goes all the way back to the first man who never who was too passive and absent when he should have been there to stand up to correct his wife and to point her in the right direction. So it goes back all the way. And then we have a time when we forgot what it meant to be a real man
Mhm.
according to the plan fashioned by the Almighty. And so a model of masculinity emerged. And then women turned against that sort of masculinity. So we really don't know what is the plan for manhood. And we come across in a domineering kind of manhood, a violent kind of manhood. And we lost what real manhood is supposed to be. I've been doing quite a bit of reading about, you know, what manhood should really be like, what was intended for manhood, what is godly manhood, and it's something I've been reading upon, and where I can try to, guide men that I have influence over in that regard. We have to redefine masculinity and manhood.
Mhm.
Men now don't really appreciate what it means to be a man, and we're losing the distinction between masculinity and femininity, and society is accommodating it, and it's
Mhm.
just going on a downward spiral.
I think that vagueness has a lot to do with the fact that we're not killing to eat, meaning, the man isn't running out and hauling down a pig and killing him and bringing the pig back so the family can eat. Now we're going into Mega Mart and Walmart and Tesco's and all these shops. You can just pick things up. So the
Well,
man's role has changed. We're not that animal that we needed to be to
well,
keep our family.
the environment has changed, but his role should not change. So he should still be a provider. So he might not need to go and hunt it in the field, but a man is supposed to be working gainfully to support his family. Um, so although the context has changed, his role hasn't really changed. And we have too many men who refuse to work or to take the easy way out. There's a whole lot wrong, but I believe if we can get more men, to understand the role of manhood, and can redefine masculinity, along the lines that the good book speaks of, then there is hope, a lot of hope.
Well, as I said, there's that chicken and egg situation. When you have these single mothers looking after little boys, teenage
Yeah,
boys, this is
yeah,
where the breakdown is happening. No
yeah,
disrespect to the mothers that are trying their
yeah.
best, but
We don't want to blame the mothers for our
no,
failures.
definitely not. Definitely not. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But not having that man in the house is a problem. I don't know if it's societal or what's going on, but I think that breakdown is definitely a problem. And you can be in a broken home with both parents in there, so
Mhm.
it's six of one, half a dozen of the other, Cool.
Yeah, it's a state of fallen mankind.
So I'd like to ask you this question. I kind of know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. Are you a
Mhm.
hoarder or are you very organized?
Oh my, if you ask my wife, I hoarder or very organized. I'm not as organized as I would like to be honest.
Mhm.
Where is this thing gone? My wife thinks I don't part with things so easily, and I tell her you don't just part with it because it's old. So in one sense, I tend to hold on to things for for long, maybe too long. But I
Mhm.
try to stay organized. But I'm not there yet. Still work in progress. So I'm
Mhm.
in the I'm in between.
So do you help out in the kitchen and help with the chores? I know you iron, but what else do you do? Do you really
Yeah.
help out?
Um. I I wash the dishes. I'm good at that,
Mhm.
and I'll make the bed if I'm the last one out of it. So I do that, and I do little things around the house, but it's not my chore, so I help. We have a little help coming once per week to help us on some of the stuff, but and I help out,
Mhm.
but I wouldn't say that it is my chore to do this or do that, but I take on the ironing and assist in the kitchen when I can. When we had kids growing up, it was a little bit more organized because then we had to get the kids ready to dispatch to school, and so I'd take care of getting the boys ready, and my wife would assist with the breakfast. Until you must learn this thing about women, Roger. They will carry a load, even though it is burdensome, and they won't complain. And then all of a sudden, that load comes down upon them so heavy that they just can't go an inch further. I remember my wife used to prepare the breakfast while I ready the boys for school. And one day she just complained, "Oral, I have to fix the breakfast every morning." And I never knew, I didn't have the slightest inclination that it had become burdensome for her.
Mhm.
And so for a while, I relieved her of that. But sadly, there wasn't that much variety in the breakfast after that. And I think she got sorry for the boys afterwards. And she resumed it when she was ready. But I do assist, and yeah.
That's
But
nice.
there are seasons, and at different seasons you do more or less.
All right, and I've always wanted to ask you this. So do you remember camping in a little area outside White House near Belmont? My geography might be bad somewhere. And I'm going to say around about 1978. Do you remember that at all?
I Every time I drive past that location, I remember every time.
Yeah.
So it was near. I think it wasn't too far from the police station, not too far from that stream that became a ravine in the '79 floods.
Yep.
Yep, it was in a field on the northern side of the road. Yes, I remember that.
Mhm. There was a lot of
I,
mosquitoes out at that time when we
yeah,
chose to go there. Okay, you remember. Good, good.
but I think that one was not a cadet camp. Was that one a scout camp or a cadet camp? I think
No,
that one
there's
was scout.
definitely cadets. I remember it well.
Cadet?
Well, I think I was in second form. And I wanted to ask
Yes,
you something.
was I hope I'm not mixing them up. Was that one an outdoor camp or we're inside a building?
No, outdoor camp in the bush. In the bush.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the camp, but that there was a teacher. Was there a Caucasian teacher with us on that camp?
I can't remember, but anyone that does remember, please put down in the comments if they remember being there. And I'm going to say Killer Leng was there, and I think Cliffy Drummond. So I remember those two people specifically being there. And what I wanted to ask you, or was, did you ever wake up with toothpaste and boot polish on your face? And always wanted to ask, even when you were first or second form, when you first started, did that ever happen to you?
Uh, I we all got involved in applying it. I'm trying to remember if I ever got, I'm trying to remember if it actually happened to me. Um, it may have in first form. It may have,
Okay.
but by third form you were the ones applying it, and then by fourth, fifth form you try to ensure it doesn't get abusive.
Right, right.
So your roles change as as you mature.
No, it was very
But
tough because you tried to stay awake as much as you could, but come four
yeah,
o'clock in the morning, your body's saying, "I need to sleep."
yeah,
And these guys
mhm,
were in your tent putting
yeah,
boot polish and toothpaste on you. I
yeah,
really had to ask you that question. Really had to ask you that question. Oral, it's been really, really fun. I've always had a lot of respect for you because I felt that you were prepared to put in the good work, the hard work, and make the sacrifices really early. And I know, me personally, I just couldn't do it. I'm too much of a having fun kind of guy. That's why I got kicked out of cadets. So I really want to
yeah,
thank you for blessing this forum. Thank you very much,
yeah.
sir.
Thank you for your kind words. But I'm learning to relax now and laugh a whole lot more, and take life easy. So maybe I'm just doing it in reverse. So it's
I'm
good,
glad.
all good.
I'm so glad that you're able to smile on this forum. But I know there's going to be lots more questions, but I hope you'll come back and talk to us some other time. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Roger. Thanks for the opportunity to share.
No worries.
Bless
No
you.
worries. Cool.